PA handbook here, yeah? Community. Keep going.
Clear delegation of roles.
So clear delegation and clear roles. Okay, another one? Accountability. Okay, another one.
Having fun.
Fun. Fun is good, yes.
Mutual investment.
Mutual investment. What does that mean?
Investment in the outcome.
Ah, okay. I'll put in outcomes. So no free riders. Okay, yes.
Taking initiative.
Taking initiative. And spelling does not count when I'm doing this. Back there. Relationship building. Paul, the only person I know. Yes. Respect. Yes. Competence. Yes.
We found that we had both our outcomes where we got a desire to be there, and actually we're both working towards something that we felt good about doing.
Ah, okay. So you wanted to be there, and you were somehow motivated by what you were doing, or how did? Oh, interested in outcome. So outcome interested, I'll put. Excellent. Who else? Yes. Passionate and, I can't hear you. Proficient, the two P's. I love that. Passionate and proficient. Others, yes.
You said a shared vision or insight for what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so a shared vision, common understanding of the goals, what you were trying to accomplish. One more, yes.
Defining the objectives clearly from the start.
Okay, so clear objectives? Okay. Okay, and someone tell me your leadership structure. What was the leadership structure in the best team? Yeah.
The person in charge is more of a facilitator than kind of a dictator.
Okay, so there was a person in charge.
Yeah, but they were more kind of just like a go-to person in case anything went wrong.
Okay, so they operated, as you said, as a facilitator, meaning they were there to support the group when the group needed help. Anyone have a different leadership model? Yeah.
Not just a facilitator, but also work along with people.
All right, so in your case, there was a defined leader,
But they were also
but they were doing work and facilitating. So they were playing multiple roles in your case. Anybody else back there? Yeah?
the delegation authority.
Okay, so in your case, who delegated, your leader delegated authority?
Delegate responsibility to people below that, who in turn delegate responsibility.
Okay, so it's more a hierarchical model where you had leaders delegating authority to the group. All right? Anybody else? Yeah.
The leader intuited the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals and then assigned them the appropriate tasks and gave them ways to improve on the weaknesses.
Okay, so again, there was a leader, and this leader was assessing the strengths and weaknesses of the group members and assigning tasks accordingly. Yes, please.
My group kind of had a group of leaders.
Okay.
So it was a large group of us, and so it was, and then the group of leaders, they collaborated with each other.
So it's more of a shared leadership?
Yeah.
Did they rotate, or was it just kind of shared?
Well, we had a facilitator at the head.
Ah.
She didn't really do anything. She was kind of just the faculty, like, responsible for us.
Okay.
And then it was 10 of us who we made the decisions, and then we had groups of people underneath us.
Okay, all right. Any other different model that we haven't heard yet? Because that's one of the things that you'll be thinking about when you work in your groups, is what's going to be the leadership structure that best fits that group of people as well as what you're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
There was shared leadership, and the leadership was rotated through based on expertise.
Okay, so in that case, there was rotated leadership.
Right.
All right, so we have a number of different models that worked. Yeah.
Avoid micromanagement.
So you had a leader who was smart enough to avoid micromanagement.
I guess.
Okay, which is important. Okay, great. Well, let's move to the experience that makes you tremble. So give me some words that characterize it. Why was this your worst experience? Yes. Tyrants. You had tyrants. Okay. Others. Yes. Favoritism. I can't spell it, so you know what it means. Yes.
Absentee group members.
Absentee group members. So I'll put absenteeism here. Yes?
Isolation.
Isolation. Wow, these are great words. Yes?
Poor communication.
Poor communication. Yes?
Self-interest.
Self-interest. Yes?
Conflict of ideas or ideology.
Conflict of ideas, and even worse, you're saying ideology, belief systems. Tough stuff. Yeah, back there. Apathy. Yes?
Leaders did not assume responsibility.
Okay, so you had leaders, but they did not take on responsibility. Way over there.
Inability to synergize.
Inability to synergize. Who haven't I heard from? Yes.
Leader lacking integrity.
Ah. Okay. Lack of integrity of the leader. Paul?
Leaders who are sort of fearful of the people that they're managing.
Okay, so they're fearful of other people having any management responsibility?
Just fearful of somebody stepping up and maybe taking some of their responsibility.
Okay. So we're hearing a lot of interesting leader stories. Okay. Anything else? Incompetent members. Okay. And let's get a couple more. Way back there.
Low expectations of people around,
Great comment. So low expectations of the members and maybe of the outcomes. Yes?
insecurity of the leader or other group members.
Okay, insecurity. And one more. Yes, sir.
Lack of professionalism.
Well, lack of professionalism. Okay, so we've got, we have one more there. Free riders. Free riders. And we'll always hear about the notorious free riders. Okay. And does everyone know what a free rider is, by the way? Everyone clear about that term? We have a number of countries and languages in the room. Someone give me a definition of a free rider. What's a free rider? Anybody?
Someone who's in the group who doesn't participate, doesn't add.
Okay. Okay, so someone in the group who doesn't carry their weight, right? They don't carry their weight. They don't step up and they let others do more. Okay? Yeah.
I had a leader that was extremely negative and convinced all against each other.
Ooh, okay. So in that case, not just negative, but I'd say kind of destructive, pinning people against each other. Okay. Okay. I have a couple of slides that come out of the research on this that talk a little bit about how to create effective teams and what typically teams that fail are missing. And you've got the slides if you want to take notes on this. And some of this I think we heard, though you actually got deeper into the people part of teams, which we'll get to in a minute. Obviously, effective teams, you mentioned that that everybody understands the tasks and the goals and have shared vision and all of that. That the expectations are clear and that people have an opportunity to say, I have this resource, I have this strength, and I'd like to use it. That there's an effective process, including leadership structure, and you spent quite a lot of time talking about leadership structure. That there are clear roles. That there are ground rules. You didn't quite talk about that, but remember, ground rules are common norms, that everyone has kind of operational behaviors, boundaries that they don't go beyond. Facilitation we heard about, and something that we're going to be talking more about is that groups that are highly successful over time assess how they're doing. simple ways of assessing, but nonetheless they assess how they're doing. And why do teams fail? You're noticing it's sort of the other side of the coin here. So I will only mention a couple that I didn't hear you talk about. This is an interesting one, lack of advocacy skills, and this comes out of studies of organizational teams that say that, well, how many of you have been in organizational teams, meaning you've worked in organizations, and so quite a few of you. Okay. This says that sometimes teams fail because after creating wonderful stuff, they don't have the ability to sell it to leadership. And leadership doesn't go with their ideas, and have any of you had that experience? How did you feel after that?
All my time was wasted.
Yeah, quite demoralized, right? And it's a really tough situation because then your energy to be in a team again is really diminished. So, so in many organizations now, they are teaching their teams advocacy skills. And then this one, no celebration or closure. And I really want you to think about that in terms of your Maxwell groups. This means that the team never formally closes. They just kind of walk away. And they don't sort of celebrate what they've accomplished. They don't celebrate all the hard work. They don't do anything to have positive closure of the team. Any of you experienced that one? And how does that feel? How did you feel when the team just... Whoop?
Frustrating.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. And again, the whole point of these teams is you want to create teams that are capable of working together again, so that if you don't have that celebration and that learning and that closure, that's problematic. And we will encourage you in the Maxwell School to have that celebration and closure, because again, it's critical to learning. So I want to get into a survey that you did, and let me get into it this way. We're not going to spend a lot of time worrying about whether you are going to be in teams or groups, because we could argue about that all day. But I do want to say that the reason that the team thing is relevant is because in your Maxwell teams, there will be a high level of interdependence. Right? Theoretically, if we do this right, there will be interdependence, meaning that you actually will need the members of the group to get an A, to accomplish the task, whatever that might be. And as you know, interdependence makes teams extremely difficult, and that's what I want to get into. So you already told me that this is what you should get out of your team. You should get synergy. Someone said in their worst team, there was not synergy. So what's synergy in your experience?
Some of the whole is greater than some of the parts.
Okay, so that every person sits there saying, you know, what we came up with was actually better than I could have done by myself, right? That's synergy. You don't have synergy when the whole team sits there and says, I could have done that. You've not got synergy. And again, our claim is that getting synergy requires that ability to get 100% of the strengths and the skills and the creativity that people bring. Teams theoretically are more effective because you've got more access to brains. Hopefully they're going to be more creative, and they can be speedier. They can build your morale, and they can be learning opportunities. So this is what we're going after for teams. But it's really hard to get those effects. It's really hard to get those effects. And we don't really see all of our teams at Maxwell getting those effects, which is why we're challenging you to do that. Why? Why is it so hard to do that? Because, as you know, the challenge of teamwork is you're trying to do two things at once. You talked about this a little bit before in your Myers-Briggs, and we're going to talk about it in relation to another survey that I've given you. The challenge of teamwork is that not only do you have to get something done, but you've got to get it done in a way that builds a relationship among the team members so that you're getting the synergy. Right? If people are left out, you don't get synergy. If people are angry or dissatisfied or isolated, you don't get synergy. You've wasted a percentage of someone's brain power. You're not getting the best product. So the challenge of teamwork is that you're not doing it yourself, and that you're managing always on two different levels, which is at the level of task and the level of relationship. And that's really important because many of us at Maxwell use this fairly well-known success triangle of what makes an effective team. And notice what it says is an effective team, a team that's actually successful, has the ability to take on harder and harder work, right, over time. So if you're building a team as a manager, you want a team that's capable of taking on harder and harder issues, and they can only do that if they've got durable relationships and they've got strong norms, process, and procedure. So that's the challenge of team. And what makes it more challenging is diversity. So what I would like to do now is to give you a couple of minutes to complete the survey, which you received this morning, because I want to get at that issue of what do you bring to the team in terms of your preference for either accomplishing task or building relationship. And you'll also validate your Myers-Briggs here. So please take a couple minutes, complete your survey. If you're done and your neighbor's done, feel free to talk to each other about who you are, but we'll reconvene in 3 minutes. Oh, you mean you'd like to get it electronically? Sure, I'll be happy to. You know what? This does not have my thing. Okay, I would be happy to send it to you electronically. Thank you for asking. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I'm gonna study these PowerPoints to make sure that
Okay.
well, I already got the copy of the PowerPoints.
Yeah, but you'd like the electronic version. Okay, you got it.
Do you want me to write down my email address?
How about at the end? That would be great.
Are you whiteboarding it?
No, I am. I don't even know what that means. I'm trying to get my.
Just turn the projector off.
Yeah, because I don't want them seeing me doing this.
Okay, you need to mute it, because when you turn the projector off, it takes several minutes to turn back on.
Up. So why don't you do that?
Yeah, I will. I can't do it until it
Okay, sorry.
stops.
You can go back on now.
No, I can't.
Okay, it's okay.
Sorry.
All right, it'll come up, and they're doing their survey
Should
anyway.
I unmute? You're okay
You can
now?
unmute, absolutely. And when I play the video, the volume is on, right?
Let me just make sure.
I'm not going to be doing it yet. Oh, so I just hit AV on mute, right?
Right.
Actually,
Yeah, it's all the way on.
okay, I think it'll work. One more minute, please. All right. You want to try and get him back? I shouldn't have let them go. Okay, let me pull you back, please. I hope you had a chance to finish the survey. And you've got your MBTI, and you can tell whether it's congruent. So let me ask, how many of you came out highly task-oriented? So raise your hand if you're highly task-oriented. Okay, we've got some. How many came out highly relationship-oriented? Wow, okay. And how many came out in the middle? Okay, all right. So you have all been in groups where there is a conflict between the task-oriented people and the relation-oriented people, I'm assuming, because that's often the nature of conflict in groups. So task-oriented person, someone who's highly task-oriented, tell me about the people in your group who are highly relationship-oriented. So who's willing to express some frustration here? Yes, sir.
I don't want to say frustration, but I would say, I don't want to hear about that. That's not relevant. I kind of feel like maybe there's a little too much fluff in the conversation.
Too much fluff in the conversation. Okay, another task-oriented person. Yeah, please.
Kind of a tendency to get sidetracked and kind of veer off from what really needs to be done.
Okay, so sidetrack, veering off, fluff. Any other task-oriented person? Yeah.
Sometimes relationship-oriented people spend a lot of time trying to build consensus or agreements, you know, and decisions have to be made. That could be a challenge.
So the issue of time, the amount of time it takes to engage in that kind of process of trying to get everybody to agree can be frustrating for you. Anyone else from the task side? Okay. Now, how about relationship side? Any frustrations you experience with task-oriented people? How would you describe that? Yes?
Sometimes people get shut down because the task is greater than the components of the task, so they don't feel like their words being valued.
So people are shut down, and so they feel like they're devalued, that what they're saying is not being valued.
I think it's important always to have the, knowing exactly what needs to be accomplished, but the important thing in the frustration is, well, how does it get accomplished? The implementation of what you're assigning me. So I think that's where some frustration comes from.
Okay, and that's a key point that you're going to be sort of working with in a major exercise through lunch, is that challenge that it's one thing to understand the task, it's another to actually design a process to get it done that satisfies the task-oriented people as well as the relationship-oriented people. Other comments from relationship-oriented people? Yes?
I find that sometimes the task-oriented people might not want to meet as much, or they might not, they just want to give out the instructions and then expect that everyone else will be able to do the task.
Okay, so that's a great comment, that sometimes the expectation is, here's the direction, let's just go do it. Why do we need to meet? That's kind of a waste of time. Yeah.
I find that task-oriented run the risk of siloing ideas, and because sometimes very quiet or people, the people that after a while being comfortable come out and talk and that type of thing, that if you just start running with things, you don't get the chance to really truly hear all, and it could take you in a direction that's really wonderful.
That's a really great point, that if the people who are dominant communicators, or who are very comfortable communicating, the E's, by the way, so those of you who are E's are going to be very comfortable in a kind of open brainstorm style. If that's what dominates and you've got a couple people sitting there not saying anything, either because they're I's and they like to think, or maybe because of language differences or cultural differences or whatever, your point is you may be missing the critical idea. Right. Yes?
I'd say unrealized potential. I've had groups that get 100%, get an A+ on a project, but that idea of synergy being greater than what was possible. Relationships take time to build, and that process might take more time. I heard a lot of task people saying, well, we only have so much time. But I've had groups where we
Yeah.
If we had taken that extra time, which the task people felt wasn't available.
Yeah, and that's a key point. Here at Maxwell, it might not be quite as important in the sense that you may have a team and you may not work together again. But in a workplace, that is really important. Because again, the hope is that you're building a team that's capable of working together over time and taking on more difficult tasks. So that if people are frustrated and that frustration is not coming out, or if the process isn't matching, you're risking that ability to operate effectively over time. Any other comments on this potential conflict between task and process? And of course, there's no right answer. You know, the group is going to make those determinations. Yes, please.
Can you be both a task and a relationship?
Well, that's what I was asking, because some people come out right in the middle. And that's actually kind of a neat score. Because what it means is that you may have the ability to observe what's going on and shift the way the group needs you. So any of you who are in the middle, that's actually kind of a nice flexible score, because again, if the group is going off on task orientation and people are being left out, you may have the ability to bring them back. If the group's going off and becoming too process relationship focused, you can bring them back to the task side. So that middle ground is not a bad thing. Any other comments on this? Did you have your hand up? Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say that I think sometimes people get either way too set up on just what needs to be accomplished. And I think in a group setting and in almost any project, there's such fluidity of ideas that you need to be open to see where those ideas can go. And if you're shutting people off, or if you're too busy trying to make everybody happy, then you can't experience that and make the project the best that it can be.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. Okay. So let me make it even more difficult. So what we've said so far is that if you are going to get what a team is capable of getting, synergy, 100% of everybody's brain, it takes not only a focus on getting the task accomplished, but through a process that satisfies the members of the group, that gets 100% of everybody's brains and doesn't create frustration. And you know that people are going to enter the groups with different backgrounds, different Myers-Briggs, different countries, different family backgrounds. And there's interesting work about this. So I just want to bring this to your attention. What this says is that if you have homogeneous groups, meaning everybody in your group is pretty much the same, you wind up with a whole group of ENTJs, highly task-oriented, and you just rip through this thing. Minimal meetings, lots of coordination, lots of role clarity and time frames, and everybody gets it done. Because you've got a shared identity. Moderately heterogeneous means you've got some commonality, and highly heterogeneous, and this is the research on diversity, highly heterogeneous, highly diverse means that you don't have a shared identity, right? A shared sense of norms, a shared culture, because it's heterogeneous. And what's the impact of that? The impact of that is really interesting. The research says, in a nutshell, that the more diverse a group is, in the beginning stages, it's actually less productive. Now, this is not a big surprise, right? So the more diverse a group is, in the short run, the less productive it is, because they don't have that shared identity and that shared way of doing work. So the challenge is to create what's called a hybrid culture, meaning that the group gets a life of its own. It's a key piece of synergy. The group takes the time to actually figure out how are we going to work together in a way that meets the needs of the diverse cultures in the room. And by cultures here, again, I'm not just talking about where you come from. I'm talking about ideology, Myers-Briggs, personality style, etc. So again, what this research says is that for teams to be successful, if there's heterogeneity, if in fact you've got diversity, which of course we want, right? We stand for diversity. This is America. Diversity is a good thing. You get better results from diversity, and we know that. In the long run, this is the other part of the research, in the long run, if in fact teams are capable or take the time to build those cultures, to build those shared norms, they are higher performing than the homogeneous teams. So the good news is diversity actually works. However, it takes effort to take advantage of that diversity. And that's basically what this says, that if, in fact, teams over time can create shared norms, shared concepts of expectations, what is excellent? If I surveyed you and said, what is excellent, I'd probably get 100 different answers to that. So shared expectations, concepts of expectations, and again, a unified team culture, meaning a unified set of values and norms having to do with working together. Over time, more diverse teams are more successful and they achieve better productivity and they achieve more creativity. So I mention that because, again, one of the challenges we're putting before you, and you're noticing we're asking you to do self-assessments because we want you to become conscious of your diversity. And we want that diversity to be part of your conversation when you get in the groups so that you take advantage of it rather than be frustrated by it. Last thing I want to say, and then Rosemary and I and Ross will be setting you up for a major exercise, and I have a brilliant YouTube to show you. So what is the conclusion to all of this? The conclusion is that, and we have a lot of relationship-oriented people, so this is obvious, the process of your team is immensely important. Immensely important. You can design a team to be competitive. You can design a team to be collaborative. You can design a process to be any way you want. Our challenge to you is that when you're working in your groups, whether you're task-oriented or relationship-oriented, you need to spend some time designing that process. Because in the absence of design, there's still process, but it might not be a good one, right? It might be the one you told me about your worst team, where there was isolation, and there was frustration, and there was dominance, and there was free riders, and there was all that other stuff happening, people wasting their brains sitting there. So in the absence of process, there's still process, right? And so what we want you to be thinking about is, how do you design a process for your team when you're working in groups that works for that particular group? And there's no answer. You have to work on that. It's based on who you are as a group. Your leadership structure is part of that. Some of you are going to be comfortable with a single leader. Some of you are going to hate that, and you're going to want the shared leadership model that you were talking about. Others of you are going to say, wow, what a great opportunity for us to rotate leadership and to learn about leadership. And you might choose to have a rotational model of leadership. So again, there's no right answer, but it needs to be deliberate. So and my don't be afraid to ask, that's kind of a mantra up in Park. Because if any of you are educated in the conflict field, one of the major techniques of conflict management is asking questions. Right? So we always put up, never be afraid to ask. Never assume that you know what's happening in someone else's brain. Don't be afraid to ask. So that's our conclusion. I want to set us up for the next exercise, but let me stop and ask if there are questions or comments about what we just did. Yes?
Design a process that everybody initially agrees to. How do you work to make sure that you'll stay true to that process? I think that's happened to me many times where you actually have a process or some key people don't follow it.
Yeah, you're making a great point. And that gets to the point about continual assessment and don't be afraid to ask. There are little evaluations we can give to you if you're interested. 5 questions that you would give to your group at the end of every meeting. to get a sense of whether what you have agreed to is still working. Because sometimes what sounded great at the first meeting, by the third meeting, is clearly not working for the group. But what some groups do is they never assess and they don't ask, is this working for everybody? They don't go back and re-norm, right? Because you're probably not going to get it the first time. So that continual assessment and re-norming is really effective. And what this is saying is you need to be asking at 3 levels, right? So you need to be asking, are we actually accomplishing our task? That's one level of assessment. That's pretty easy. But the other is, are we actually operating well as a group? And again, very simple surveys to be testing that. And then this one. This is the key. Do we each feel like we are operating at the level we're capable? And if you find out that, in fact, 3 of your 5 members are saying, I'm being underutilized, that's an issue. So again, we would suggest that assessment, hopefully at 3 levels. Are we getting the job done? Are we operating well as a group? And does each member feel like they're actually being fully utilized? Other questions, comments about that? Okay. I mentioned that. Then let me go to the brilliant video. Now, I'm showing this video because what you're going to be doing after this session is designing a game. And we're going to be breaking you up into small groups. And some of you are going to be designing a game with one kind of outcome, and the rest of you will be designing a game with a different kind of outcome. And so I thought it would be fun to give you the classic game. I'll show you a video of it, and then you tell me what the desired outcome of this game is. I hope we have Peanut fans here. Let's see, wait a minute, let me go back. How do I go back here? Go back here. All right, this one I know works.
Hey!
Oh, but I needed to go at the very beginning with the sound. We have our technical expert, Nell, helping us here. Classic Peanuts music.
Hey! Stop for musical chairs. Come on, let's go. Set up the chairs now, all in a row. You run around the chairs till the music stops, and you have to find a seat now. Don't get caught, 'cause when the music stops, you can't be standing there if you want to be a winner at musical chairs. Now we take away a chair while you're running around. Don't let the kid in front of you get you down. Just listen to the rhythm now, don't miss a beat, 'cause you don't want to be the only one without a seat. 'Cause when the music stops, you can't be standing there if you want to be a winner at musical chairs. Now, every time the music stops, you're gonna end up one chair short. And if you're boogalooing when the music's gone, sorry, you gotta move on. Now it's the moment of truth, it's getting down the wire. You're burning up inside with musical fire. You hover around each corner of the precious seat, waiting for the moment you can get off your feet. 'Cause when the music stops, you can't be standing there if you want to be a winner. You got to be a winner if you want to be a winner at musical chairs. Yeah!
Okay. Yay for Peppermint Patty, all right? So, that's a process that was designed to achieve what? One winner. And how were the other characters feeling? Sad. You see the sadness in red sheets. Okay. So that's our point. Our point is that process going to get you engaged in now, and let me